Hey there. Good morning, Indiana. Welcome to Who's Left This Week, the unapologetically progressive Sunday morning news and politics show for Indiana. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers. I am broadcasting from Bloomington. Got a great panel of returning guests here to join us this week. First, let me go ahead and do the shameless self promotion. We could use a subscription over at progressiveindiana.net. That really helps us keep doing what we're doing here and helps us support an ecosystem of other Indiana progressive content creators. That is, again, progressiveindiana.net. All of our content is freely available. We do not believe in paywalls in the time of a political crisis, but we do need your financial support to keep that thing going. Also, give us a follow over on social media at Progressive Indiana Network, spelled out all the way. Blue Sky and TikTok. The handle is PIN Indiana, and you can find me, of course, at Who's Left. The handle there is at who'sleft.us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. Just at Who's Left on all the rest. All right, I think that covers it. Again, could really use your support. Let us welcome in our guests today. First, coming back to the show is Hancock County Democratic Party co-chair and Navy vet Chuck Gill. Chuck, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Always love having you around. Very, very thoughtful guy. And you know what? We've got one right up your alley later in the show when we talk about our state news. We've got a water story, and you're a water infrastructure guy. So I'm really interested to hear what you've got to say about that one.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
All right. And also, back to the show. It's been entirely too long. There is autism advocate Jennifer David. Jennifer,
Hello.
welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Jen, you've been putting out a bunch of content lately, putting articles out in the local paper down there in Clark County, writing on the Substack. You love to see it.
I love it. I am so happy because I finally found a way to get out some of that stuff in my head, and it's been awesome. So yeah, I've been writing, sending stuff. They've been putting me in the guest column in the News and Tribune, which is out of Jeffersonville, down there by Louisville, and it's been great. I've gotten a lot of good feedback.
You know, we've got a story that first broke in the News and Tribune, I believe, later on in the show as well, that we'll talk about. Yeah, you sent that to me, and good to see. I've since seen it elsewhere, but you got that to me like straight away.
Oh yeah,
that is in the Indiana section of the show, which will come in the back half. But first, we're going to start with our U.S. and world news, and we're going to start in the same place we sort of left off last week. The biggest story this week is the ongoing federal occupation of Minnesota, essentially. Now, we're going to start with this from ABC News. So last Sunday, in the immediate aftermath of the incident, President Trump and then White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt began to distance themselves from the provocative statements made by top administration officials. Trump, in an interview with the Wall Street Journal on Sunday, notably declined to say whether he thought the agents involved in the Preddy shooting acted appropriately, and said his administration was reviewing everything and will come out with a determination. Leavitt told reporters that the shooting was being investigated by Homeland Security, the FBI, and Customs and Border Protection, which of course raises the question of whether this is a impartial investigation. But at least they're making efforts to say that things will be looked at. Now, internally in the White House, there is a bit of a blame game erupting between members of the administration. So Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is under fire for issuing misleading and incendiary information that claimed immigration agents killed an armed Minnesota protester, Preddy, on Saturday because he wanted to, quote, massacre them. Now, White House officials are blaming Customs and Border Patrol for furnishing inaccurate information, while others are targeting Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff and top Trump advisor. This is according to close six sources with knowledge of the situation who told Axios this. Noem told a person who relayed her remarks to Axios, quote, everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen, referring to Miller, throwing him under the bus. Now, the largest federal government's employee union, the AFGE, on Monday called for the resignations of both Noem and Miller. along with House Democratic leaders, including Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, with Catherine Clark and Caucus Chairman Pete Aguiar, who similarly called for Noam to resign on Tuesday morning. Well, we didn't get Noam or Miller's head, but we did get the reassignment of Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino. Fun story, by the way. But bovino, the root word of bovine, cow. Well, bovino is the sacrificial lamb in this case. As Trump is taking him out of Minnesota and replacing him with border czar Tom Homan, saying Homan will report directly to the president. This comes after Trump spoke with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz on Monday, saying Walz was happy with the news of the personnel change, while Minnesota Republican House Speaker Lisa DeMuth welcomed Homan's arrival as an opportunity for a, quote, reset. Now, Chuck, what do you think? Is this an opportunity for a reset? Is getting Bovino out enough?
You're literally changing out one bull in a china shop to another. I mean, it on the surface it plays to the political noise that's happening, but it's not a positive change in my opinion. In fact, in some ways, I almost think it can go somewhat worse with him in charge. I mean, there's this talk of a quote, drawdown, which whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. It could be 5 guys, could be 2, and holding accountable anybody. That seems like a, I don't know, contradiction in terminology. So it's not a positive. This is just trying to placate the masses that are outraged, and unfortunately, it's not going to be a good step for what this process is right now.
What, Tom Homan, man of integrity, the same man who took $50,000 in a fast food bag in front of FBI agents and then had this thing swept under the rug by the Trump administration? Jennifer, what do you think? I mean, is this genuine? Is this an actual opportunity to reset or not?
Well, I don't know. Are you hearing what you're saying? Because I don't think there's ever been anything genuine coming out of this administration at all. They're just playing triage. They are just trying to diffuse the situation. Ice Barbie's not going to last long. She's probably going to end up being the first one that's going to get, take the fall. And because it's not going to change the fundamental policies of the administration, no matter how they're trying to deal with this right now. And that's really the root of what we're dealing with. And it's so ingrained in our society and everything that the administration is trying to set up across the country right now.
Okay. Well, so look, I mean, there are Republicans that are also getting involved in this and calling for change. So maybe that's a development. Now, last Sunday, you saw over 60 Minnesota CEOs call for de-escalation in a admittedly very tepid and non-controversial letter. Still, this is the CEO class, a very Republican-leaning group. Furthermore, a Minnesota gubernatorial candidate dropped out of the race, citing the party's handling of immigration enforcement. This is Republican Chris Mandel announcing on Monday that he was ending his run for Minnesota governor, pointing to his party's handling of immigration enforcement in his state as his rationale. And Mandel said, quote, "I cannot support the National Republicans' stated retribution on the citizens of our state, nor can I count myself a member of a party that would do so," in a post on X. In addition to Mandel. Oh, sorry, Jennifer, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that the Republican Party is okay with that because they see those people as soft. I don't think that's going to change anything. I mean, the trajectory of what has been going on with these ICE raids and them being in these cities, it's going up, right? It just continues to go up. Now we've had 2 people killed within a short period of time. Just swapping that person out is not going to change the trajectory of what's going on. You still have ICE there on the grounds everywhere.
Yeah, you're going to need a lot more breakaway than one guy. Chuck, go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, and I was just want to tie on to that the systemic where they're racially profiling anyone and everyone that might potentially pose a risk. That is the fundamental problem. Until that is modified, it doesn't matter who's in what position. And I'm sorry, the gubernatorial candidate dropping out is more or less a political calculation because they're seeing the writing on the wall that nobody likes this. It is not going to be forthcoming for them to be, for their political future. But does that indicate that these people are having a change of heart? Absolutely not. I think that until the American people force a change in direction and philosophy, which these protests are doing they're getting it out there. I mean, people are motivated. That's what
They
has
really
to
are.
happen. We the people have to hold these. These I can't say it, what I want to say, but let's just say we have to hold these folks accountable.
And
So listen, it goes beyond Mandel, right? Now there are Republicans at the national level calling for change as well. On Tuesday, Republican Senators Tom Tillis of North Carolina and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska called for Noem to resign. Tillis saying, quote, "I think what she's done in Minnesota should be disqualifying and she should be out of a job." Murkowski stopped short of demanding that Trump force out Noem, but did say she was disappointed in the DHS secretary. Now, the disappointment extends to other senators who are calling at least for an investigation into this shooting. Senators Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Susan Collins of Maine, Mike Crapo of Idaho, John Curtis of Utah, and Jerry Moran of Kansas joined Murkowski and Tillis, saying there needs to be a thorough probe into the shooting. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, called on the heads of ICE, CBP, and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services to testify before his panel at an oversight hearing next month. Now, speaking of the ICE director, Todd Lyons, he had been ordered to appear in a federal judge's courtroom on Friday to explain why federal officials refused to hold a bond hearing for a detained immigrant, as U.S. District Court Chief Patrick Schultz, a Bush appointee, mind you, had ordered, and to explain why ICE had repeatedly violated court orders in Minnesota over ICE actions. Now, the immigrant, Juan Hugo Tobe Robles, was released from custody in Texas on Tuesday, a day after Schultz scheduled this hearing. But in a scathing court filing on Wednesday, I believe, Schultz said, quote, "That does not end the court's concerns." Also writing, ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence, attaching an appendix to his filing identifying nearly 100 such violations. Now, the DOJ did open a civil rights probe into Preddy's shooting on Friday. And, sticking on the theme of Republican pushback, it was very interesting to see the NRA attack Trump after he says Preddy should not have had a gun. Now, on Tuesday, when asked if he agreed with some officials who described Preddy as a domestic terrorist, Trump replied that he hadn't heard that, but certainly shouldn't have been carrying a gun. The NRA said they believe unequivocally that all law-abiding citizens have a right to keep and bear arms anywhere they have a legal right to be. This coming after the NRA slammed a Justice Department official appointed by the Trump administration who weighed in on the shooting just hours as it had happened, writing, "If you approach law enforcement with a gun, there is a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. Don't do it." To which the NRA replied directly to that post, calling that sentiment dangerous and wrong. So I don't know, Chuck, if the politicians are only giving performative resistance, what do you think about the NRA coming out and standing up to this administration, who has been very, very pro-gun?
There's something to the effect of probably why the weather is the way it is, like hell froze over, apparently. To see the NRA to actually make a response saying, "Hey, wait a minute, you're actually wrong on this," was to me astounding. Do I fault legal gun owners? No, not at all. And Alex was not out there to harm anybody. He was, if anything, his instincts of the nurse were the prime thing of it. So this whole classification of that he was out to harm and massacre and do all these things, I mean, that was all bull because they needed to justify the killing and they needed to find cover. And that was the whole thing of it. The point, and again, as a veteran, this drives me absolutely nuts because I serve to protect all of our rights, even the ones I don't necessarily hold to as something that I would do myself. But you know what? It's not my opinion that matters. They are rights we have, and everyone should have those rights to use. You know, nobody should be deprived of the rights. Period. And the fact that if you have a weapon, you're more prone to get shot. Square that off for me because that doesn't make a bloody bit of sense. I mean, this is a constitution. You know, we have constitutional carry here in Indiana, and how many people walk around with weapons all the time, and yet they're not getting shot? So, again, make it make sense, and it doesn't.
Yeah, and well, Jennifer, the NRA especially, they're awfully quiet when this happens to like a black kid, but now it's which happens all the time, right? And frankly, this is the public outcry in reaction to Renee Good and Alex Pretty's shooting. Where was this when this happens all the time in communities of color, right? So I don't know. Did it take a couple white people getting shot to wake folks up? What's going on, Jennifer?
Well, no, because this is not the first time that, well, I mean, as far as like Renee Good, this isn't the first time a white woman has been killed like this under the Trump administration. It happened last time he was in office. This is the first time, two white people closely together. So that's going to make more of an impact and a lasting impact on, I think, people, as well as everything else that is going on in the country at the same time. So it's just so much. And part of this, I think, to even like the NRA being involved and throwing things in there is by design. Just the human mind can only consume and process and deal with so much stuff all at one time. And all of these things are just, we've just got all these things spinning and spinning and spinning. And the Epstein files, everything I see, all these different things that we're talking about, that comment comes up there again and again and again. So, and they're all interconnected too, right? Because if you're you're one of Trump's people and you're in those files and, the loyalty and, all of this, it's really about the systems. I think, Gil mentioned this too, the way that the systems are in this country, the way that they're designed.
And I think you both mentioned up at the top that this reshuffling, the demotion of Bovino, the promotion of Homan, the internal struggles between Noem and Miller, and it's all performance, right? And I think they really gave it away. I saw this in an article over on NBC News earlier this week, and there are a couple great quotes in here. So administration officials and allies acknowledged to NBC News that they needed a strategic shift amid a public uproar over Pretty's killing, though the White House is still very much focused on its original agenda of cracking down on immigration and fraud. A Republican lawmaker said, quote, "The visuals were not playing well. He understands TV. He saw it for himself." Now, Trump has publicly expressed frustration with the way his administration is being portrayed on a number of issues. In a True Social post on January 19th, he said there was too much media attention on ICE in Minnesota. The following day, during a rare appearance at the White House press briefing, Trump also mused that maybe I have bad public relations people. I think we're doing a much better job than we're able to promote. We're not promoting. And it's one of the reasons he gave for being at that news conference. And again, News Nation also had an article saying that Trump will stay aggressive on immigration, saying the president remains happy with immigration and customs enforcement, and that he likes the, quote, tough guy storyline. Despite messaging from the president about de-escalating, one source told News Nation that federal officers have been given absolute power by Trump and that he would not direct agents to tone down their aggressive tactics, adding they are emboldened from the top down. And his conciliatory language didn't last long, because by Friday, Trump was calling Alex Preddy a, quote, agitator and perhaps insurrectionist, marking an increase in the intensity of his rhetoric toward the ICU nurse. After, again, saying earlier in the week that he wanted to de-escalate a little bit in Minnesota. In a post, again, on his broke-down website, Truth Social, Trump said that Preddy's stock has gone way down after a video surfaced showing the 37-year-old in an altercation with federal immigration agents 11 days prior to the incident in which he was killed, in which he can be seen yelling at the officers and kicking out the rear taillight on one of their vehicles. So, Jennifer, that didn't last long, did it?
No. So, I was thinking earlier as you were going through that, it's like the Hunger Games. I mean, everything really is for the media. And like, you know, this is going to be for a minute. Oh, wait, they want to see this. Oh, they want to see that. I mean, it's really just even in what you are talking about and how you're telling this information is, you know, he'll understand this if he could see himself, and he sees himself through the media and all of those people that are mirroring him back to him. So
it's just a big TV show for these people, isn't it, Chuck?
Sadly, in Jennifer hit it on the Hunger Games reference, and it to me is kind of like in his warped, deranged mind, I think that this is some kind of reality show he thinks he's running, that he's playing the big, strong, ooh, I'm doing all this, that, and the other thing. And the fact that he sits there and says that Alex was an insurrectionist or paid agitator. The paid agitator thing is like his label for, I don't know, bloody everything. But the fact that he's calling someone an insurrectionist, I find that, oh my God, ironic. You couldn't paint a bigger ironic picture if you tried. The fact that Alex was interacting with ICE people 11 days prior should have no bearing on that event that occurred. That was a complete failure in process and procedure. It didn't follow what should have been done. There is no excuse to that murder, and that's exactly what it was. It was flat out murder. Period. Sorry,
Jennifer, you started.
I know, because I'm thinking about movies. What is the movie? Everything that's going on is just so real, and I associate things a lot. But it's just like everything's turning. It's like reality is turning, like with Don Lennon getting arrested and those other media people, at the church, and just they're using so much against us, all of the things that Democrats and the average person and progressives, all the gains in the last so many years, they're not just peeling them back, they're flipping them on us. And it's they got full-time people working on propaganda there, and it really is so much of these kind of things. If we can step back even more from where we are often talking and functioning and dealing with all of this.
They're still at it, right? It's all a performance. The rhetoric, the softening rhetoric lasted a day or two. Here we are. We have Trump calling people an agitator. We've got his supporters going out attacking sitting congresswomen. It was on Tuesday, when 55-year-old Anthony Kazmirchek was observed by officers, Capitol Police officers, protection for Representative Ilhan Omar. This guy used a syringe to spray an unknown liquid on the congresswoman. Now, he was arrested and booked into the county jail there in Minneapolis on suspicion of third-degree assault. Fortunately, preliminary reports indicate the liquid was non-toxic, but, this is stochastic terrorism. This is Trump riling up his crowd. When asked Wednesday, Omar said the man who attacked her was specifically upset that Trump's order to deport Somalis was not yielding enough deportation of Somalis, so he wanted to come and get the person he thought who was protecting the Somalis. Right?
Do you have her response? Do you remember what she said about it? It was just something like, kind of like he's just taking the wrong weapon to a war. Like she's been through war. Like whatever he was doing did not faze her at all. And having lived in Minnesota and worked with Somalis, yeah, I definitely can get that. They've definitely been through a lot.
She was ready to throw hands too. Like she did
was.
not back down. She
She
kept
did.
going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Total badass move. You know what's not badass though? Kidnapping children. They're still doing this there. Again, so much for toning things down. You remember we all saw the picture of little Liam Ramos, the kid in the bunny hat, who along with his father were kidnapped and sent to Texas. Well, this week Liam's mother, from hiding, spoke to Minneapolis Public Radio about what she witnessed that day. She also discussed her phone conversation with her son and her husband and the pain she has experienced. Now, mind you, Liam's mom, is Erica Ramos, is 3 months pregnant and in hiding. And, she has had to go to the hospital emergency room because she's having a difficulty with her pregnancy, which is to be expected when you're under such tremendous stress. Meanwhile, Liam and his father are currently still being held by federal authorities in the South Texas Family Residential Center, about an hour southwest of San Antonio. Adrian Conejo Orias, the father, tells her that Liam has been sick. He's had stomach pain, fever, and he won't eat the food because it's of low quality. And meanwhile, 2 more kids from that child's school have been taken into ICE custody on Thursday. This is a Columbia Heights school. The officials there said the detention happened after agents apprehended the children's mother during her court appointment earlier that day. So she was doing things the right way. At least 6 children from Columbia Heights School District have been taken into ICE custody this month. Now, fortunately, in a scathing ruling, a federal judge ordered the release of Liam Ramos and his father, Judge Fred Beery of the Federal District Court for the Western District of Texas, ruling that the detention was unconstitutional because they're both asylum seekers, right? They did it the right way. For all the folks who say, oh, we want legal immigration, where are they now? And by the way, in addition to the kidnapping children and the using the insurrectionist talk and their supporters attacking sitting congresswomen, we also sort of kind of invaded Ecuadorian territory when an ICE agent on Tuesday attempted to forcibly enter the Ecuadorian consulate in Minneapolis. Now, federal agents under international law are generally not allowed to enter an embassy or consulate without the express permission of the consul or ambassador. Chuck, I don't know. Like we said, it's all a big performance. It's all a game to these people. They might shuffle some chairs on the deck, but it certainly looks like the extremism is continuing.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I find it would be comical if it wasn't so damn dangerous. That's the biggest problem with it. I mean, even attempting to enter another country's consulate. I mean, that's on such a monumental scale, bad idea, because that can spark off international tensions, even worse than what they already are. I mean, Trump is doing a fantastic job of screwing up the rest of the world with our alliances and everything else. But you do something like that, it really can set a negative thing. And then to top it all off, he's sending ICE agents to the freaking Olympics.
Oh, that's awful.
Where did that become an idea? I mean, I'm sorry.
Why? Yes.
What border are we patrolling at the Olympics? I mean, again, make this make sense to me, because I'm sorry, my brain is not processing this one at all. And I have been in a lot of different areas of the world. Immigration is so much different in a lot of other places. I mean, we just have such a backwards approach to this. It's freaking ridiculous. Sorry.
Are they being used to do a different job there at the Olympics? Like, that's why they're supposedly there. Are they filling a different role?
No, they're there to actually operate to see who they can track down. At least to my understanding. Let me double check this. Well, that's the $1 million question. Like, who the heck are they trying to tackle at the Olympics? I mean,
well, this is in another country. Like, how are they?
Right, it's in another country.
Immigration law are they enforsing in Italy? That is not their job.
And I will tell you. Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer.
No, you go ahead. I
was just gonna say, there's this thing we have with a lot of other countries. It's called status of forces agreement, which tells you exactly what you can or cannot do in law enforcement. Like, so you can only enforce so many things in a foreign country, but you have to obey their laws first, and then ours after that. So, and we would apply the same standard if people were coming here. Like, what happens if pick one? Let's say
the
Thailand.
French Foreign Legion.
Yes. Okay, perfect. They come over and say, "Hey, we're conducting immigration operations in your country." Could you even imagine the flip out from the conservative, law and order folks that are preaching this? I mean, it just does not. It doesn't track. Sorry, Jennifer, go ahead.
No, Trump just pushes the envelope as far as he can. He just will try anything and see what happens. And he's positioning himself there, just the same as he's positioning himself here, in these states, and now trying to do it in every county. And Indiana's got a bill on the table that will help make that happen. So,
yep.
It's just, he's just going around there being the bully. And even like, we don't know what to do here. These countries, they don't know what the hell to do either. I mean, with all the different things he's throwing at them in retaliation.
I will tell you that Italy is not.
Go ahead,
Italy is not timid in their responses. So trust me, you tick off the Italian authorities, they will let you know in no uncertain terms. They don't play around. Not that I know.
Again, this is an ally. This is a place we already have troops. We have an I mean, they have a far right-wing government of their own, and we're still pissing them off. What does that tell you? So, you know who else is pissed off, though? The people of this country. Now, we've seen polling this week where Trump's approval among independent voters has hit a new low. This is an Economist YouGov survey, and this is conducted last weekend. So these numbers may have even gone down since then, showing Trump's net job approval among independents at minus 40 points, with 27% approving and 67% disapproving. Even a Fox News poll, which these are typically skewed toward Republicans, in this one, voters say the economy is in bad shape and that Trump's policies haven't helped, that he isn't spending enough time on the economy, and that things are unlikely to get better this year. That poll finds a 54% majority thinks the country is worse off today than it was a year ago, compared to 31% who say it's better off. Now, that 23 percentage point deficit comes from most Democrats and independents saying the U.S. is worse off, and a smaller majority of Republicans saying the country is better off. I really want to know who these people are. And then this week, this culminated in another massive day of protest on Friday. Thousands of anti-ICE protests took place across the U.S. in a massive day of action. Protesters in Philadelphia, New York, Columbus, Boise gathered at city halls, courthouses, state houses, and legislative buildings in Minnesota, where tens of thousands of people turned out for economic actions and a rally last Friday to protest ISIS surge in the city. They did it again this week, with some businesses closing for the day and others staying open under different models, either donating revenue or providing free coffee and a place for people in the community to rest safely. Good to see. I think the people are getting it, guys. The people are getting it, right?
I would believe so. And I want to go back to something that Jennifer said a little earlier about the movies and how reality is kind of flipping on its head. And the two movies that ran across my mind were V for Vendetta and Civil War, which was a more recent movie. Those two are kind of, and hopefully the second one doesn't happen any more than the base idea. But the people standing up for themselves is what is absolutely key. I mean, when did it become okay to kidnap kids? I mean, when did that become something that the United States said was okay? Confining kids is what, I hate to say it, the Taliban would do, or ISIS, those kind of things.
But that's what happened in the first administration, and people knew that, and they continued to vote for him.
Right, and for some reason that becomes there's some calculus or some kind of crazy thing of saying it's okay to treat these people who are foreign any way we wish to. What happened to just basic human civility? To treat us as human beings instead of objects. And I think that dehumanization is one of those things we really have to fight, on the left, of saying we see people as humans first. All the rest of it doesn't matter at all. And we need to get back to that. As a country, we need to get back to that.
And I think part of that is what we're talking about here is the children, because if we're a society that can accept that, and the Trump administration is purposely doing this, because if they're able to show, oh, this situation is so bad, these people are so bad that we have to go into schools and we have to, take 5-year-old children. And if we can accept that, then they can continue to get away with that.
Well, and here's the funny part that I wanted. You just hit on something that I wanted to point out with the kids, right? Supposedly now the Republicans are all big about pro-life, right? Oh, square that up, make that make sense, because they care about the kids before they're born. Sometimes, maybe, possibly, but they don't give a flying rip after they're out. So again, it's the dichotomy of not treat. They don't care about the process afterwards, because they take away all these things that help people actually live their lives. Childcare. I mean, sorry, I'm going to go off on tangents. I got to keep centered.
Well, I mean, at the same time, the policies and things that they're putting in place, especially in Indiana, the children that they do care about, they're the white Christian children, right? Because the programs that they're bringing into the schools that are getting the money, the schools that are being protected, those are not the schools that are having children taken from them.
So listen, we get it, right? The people get it. We're protesting. We're out in the streets. I mean, like the phrase "abolish ICE" is above water now. It is the moderate position. Most people in America disapprove of ICE. Well, you know who still doesn't get it? Congressional Democrats. So the Senate passed a funding deal on Friday. This is from Yahoo Finance. This deal requires the House approval, which, we're in the midst of a small government shutdown here over the weekend until the House gets back into session Monday to ratify this thing. But in a bipartisan vote of 71-29 Friday evening, an agreement between Senate Democrats and the White House to push off a decision on funding the Department of Homeland Security for 2 weeks and approve 5 other spending bills went through. Now, this current state of play means, like I said, we're in a partial government shutdown. Some of these departments are currently out of service. Again, it's the weekend. They probably weren't doing a whole lot anyway. But funding for the Pentagon and State Department, as well as Health and Human Services and Education, are approved if this quintet of other bills goes through. Now, Truthout had a good analysis of this. Democrats were hoping they could force negotiations on 3 pretty timid demands: ending roving patrols by immigration agents and tightening rules requiring the use of warrants, creating a universal code of conduct for federal agents when it comes to the use of force, and forbidding agents from wearing masks, requiring them to display their identification more clearly, and making body cameras an essential feature of their work. Now, mere hours after they blocked the spending package on Wednesday, Democrats rolled over and kicked the can down the road for 2 weeks, allowing Democrats and Republicans time to negotiate over those issues and hopefully more. This deal represents a major concession from Democrats. By allowing spending for most of the government to be approved, they give up a large bargaining chip to ensure their demands, however milquetoast, are taken seriously. Now, critics have blasted Democrats' list of demands, which we listed, as weak and ineffectual to begin with, pointing out that they don't even include a call for federal immigration agents to leave Minneapolis, and notably, ICE is already ignoring dozens of judicial orders, and any reforms included in a new funding bill may simply be disregarded. I mean, Chuck, there was the shutdown in the fall over health care. Democrats had leverage. They pissed it away. Here, Senate Democrats have leverage to defund ICE, they piss it away. They give up their leverage. What you get to the point where you feel like they're not really on our side, that they're just complicit and they give token resistance for optics.
Unfortunately, the politics plays harder than the needs of the people. And that's why I've said for a long time that we need to institute across the board term limits and have some massive reform in how we have people in these positions. Because if you listen to the majority of the groundswell, the grassroots Democrats right now, they are not in line with what's in Washington right now and what's occurring, because they are not looking. They're like, why would you give up that advantage to actually make a meaningful impact and make millions of people's lives better by revoking this crap? I mean, sorry, again, trying not to go off on tangents.
Sometimes with Democrats, they think it's kind of like, if I let this little thing go, it's going to allow me to help people more this way, and deluding themselves that you have to start somewhere. You can't, you get in office, a lot of people run for very good reasons. They get into it. They want to stay there, and staying there involves a lot of times sacrificing your morality to stay there. And a lot of times deluding yourself into thinking, okay, well, this is the bigger piece here, and this is what we're going for. And the Democrats don't have a lot to stand on right now because they gave in last time. And that was a very long time that, we fought. And everybody, a lot of us were very upset, especially progressives. And so, I mean, they just really don't have a lot to stand on top of the fact that our party is so divided as well.
It's divided between folks that want to draw a line in the sand and folks who are like, well,
burying their head in the sand.
Maybe if we just compromise with the far right this time, we can live to fight another day. We've been doing that and compromising with the far right for like 50 years, and it has gotten us exactly where we are now. We should have drawn a line in the sand way back there, and we haven't.
That's part of how I think a lot of Democrats continue to run their campaigns too, right? There's some candidates, all I hear them talking about is Republicans. It's like, what the hell? What ticket are you running on? Republicans are not going to come and vote for us. You need to be spending your time getting more Democrats out to vote for you.
You rile up the base, and you get people that have been disillusioned with the process involved. That is your voter base. We're going to end on that later in the show. There was a really good study on this in Indiana this week. But I mean, Chuck, that's it, right? We're not. People are not excited by squishy.
No, not anymore. There is, and I've seen this in our local candidates. We want to, we have candidates running that are basing on actual human needs and in taking, the stances where it needs to be made, not compromising where it doesn't need to be made. And now, full disclosure, compromise in a certain way does make some sense if you're dealing with rational, logical situations. However, the situation we're dealing with now is not in that framework by any stretch of the imagination. So we as Democrats, as progressives, as the left generally, and I'm not saying go full militant, but I'm saying we need to take a tough stand, have a spine, and stand up for what we damn well believe in and not give into it.
Yeah, damn right. So I guess let's put a bow on this Minneapolis story and this ICE stuff by noting that on Saturday a federal judge said she will not stop the enforcement surge in Minnesota. This is Judge Catherine Menendez denying a preliminary injunction in a suit which we talked about last week, filed by Minnesota State Attorney General Keith Ellison and the mayors of Minneapolis and St. Paul. In ruling on the this injunction, she zeroed in on the Constitution's 10th Amendment, which limits the federal government's power to infringe on the sovereignty of states, but does generally defer to federal supremacy. So the 10th Amendment under attack. Let's move on to the another way state sovereignty is under attack here. You've got the feds coming in to Georgia this week and raiding Fulton County elections offices. Now, this is dangerous stuff. From ProPublica, quote, when the FBI executed a warrant on Wednesday to seize records from the 2020 presidential vote in Fulton County, Georgia, it marked both an extraordinary event in the history of American elections and a significant escalation in President Trump's breaking of democratic norms, several legal experts said. Now, we all remember Trump has long claimed without evidence that the 2020 election was stolen from him and blamed Georgia in particular for his loss to Joe Biden. And though I should note, if he had lost Georgia, had won Georgia, he still would have lost that race. Now, after the election, he famously made a call pressuring the Secretary of State there, Brad Raffensperger, to find him enough votes to win. About a week ago in Davos, he once again called the 2020 election rigged and promised that people will soon be prosecuted for what they did. So, this warrant served on the Fulton County Election Center sought ballots, tabulator tapes, digital data, and voter rolls, which it alleged might constitute evidence of the commission of a criminal offense. Mo Ivory, a Democratic Fulton County commissioner, arrived on the scene shortly after the FBI agents did and said that once an error on the warrant was corrected, they backed up lines of trucks to the election warehouse and spent hours carting away boxes of ballots and other materials. The search began in the morning and was still going on well past nightfall. Now, other local officials there, Fulton County Board of Commissioners Chair Rob Pitts and County Board of Registration and Elections Chair Cherry Allen spoke outside of the election center Wednesday night, detailing what they knew about the seizure. This is from Fox 5 in Atlanta. Both Pitts said they do not know where the FBI is taking the boxes or what they will do with them. Quote, we can no longer, and I no longer, as the chair of this board, satisfy not only the citizens of Atlanta, but the citizens of the world that those ballots are still secure, Pitts said. So these ballots have been sealed under a court order in a civil trial, and Commissioner Marvin Arrington said one of the primary concerns now is that they are being seized, is what will happen to them once they are out of Fulton County's custody. So this raid may have been illegal, according to Democracy Docket, and they warn that the 2020 election isn't the real target. It's the 2026 election that is the target. And the Center for Election Innovation and Research Executive Director David Becker said in a press call that ongoing through 2026 and perhaps 2028 election cycles, the administration is going to use some of its actions to fuel false claims of fraud, to spread disinformation, to encourage distrust of our election system, particularly when elections yield results that the president doesn't like. And particularly concerning in this raid, as if the entire thing wasn't concerning enough, is that Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was there. This is from ABC. She was seen on Wednesday at the county election hubs and operations center as the FBI conducted the search warrant. Now, Alexa Henning, the DNI's deputy chief of staff, claimed in a post on X Friday morning that intelligence has found that foreign actors are developing more and more sophisticated cyber capabilities that target critical infrastructure, which reinforces the need for ODNI to ensure that these efforts do not impact the election process. So a lot there, Chuck, but I mean, it sounds like these ballots are now out of the hands of local election officials and under possession of Kash Patel's FBI. Can we trust any findings that they come up with?
I'm sorry, I can't keep a straight face in answering that question legitimately. I mean, the FBI has, in my mind, just no credibility at this point. I mean, you have the federal government coming into a state, stealing their election, all their election records. And again, how have we gotten to this point? I mean, allowing that to happen is absolutely insane just on the surface of it. And the think the FBI is going to come up with some kind of reliable investigation? No. But then the other part of it with Tulsi Gabbard being there, I think this sets up more or less a kind of QAnon type of thought process moving into the future and lending credence to all these wild, weird conspiracy theories that are going to grow. And these are just they're just fertilizing the field with as much bull as they can spread. It's just this. I mean, it's just it'd be like the same thing if they came into Hancock County and stole our records. The whole county would be up in arms over it, and rightly so.
And so what are they going to do? They're going to come in there and they're going to say, we found evidence of fraud, right? We found that Nicolas Maduro was flipping votes or something using Marjorie Taylor Greene Jewish space lasers, right? Like, what are they going to come up with? What are they going to say? And then Jennifer, like, what does that mean for 2026? What does that mean for 2028?
Well, I think what it means is what it means to Trump. He just can't let it go. He cannot have the world thinking that he lost that election, and he's stuck on it. And I think that's really all he wants. He just wants to prove everybody what he thinks that he won, and he can't move on for it. The pictures of Tulsi Gabbard, I think I saw one online. She was like hiding behind a wall or something. She had her hat real low and everything. I mean, her being there, it shows the world, oh, this is something important. It's undercover, it's again all that performative stuff. So
I consider myself on the left flank of the Democratic Party, and I know some people out here, maybe even further to the left of me, who really liked Tulsi Gabbard at one point. They thought that she was a real stand-up progressive person, and it turns out she was a grifter the whole time who just wanted to be close to power. God help us if she's involved in any of this election business going forward.
Yeah, that's definitely the vibe she gives off, especially seeing her, like, part of that picture, like, that's what I thought, what I told you, but also part of it to me was like her kind of being like, oh my God, am I really here doing this? Have I literally sunk this low to be here? Because, some of that stuff that these people are doing, they're doing because, they want to continue to kiss the ring and stay where they're at, whether or not they agree with it or not. They're sure as hell going to do it.
Well, Jennifer, just like that gubernatorial candidate in Minnesota, like at any time, at any point, you can stand up and say, you know what, I'm out.
Well, you know what? It's not gotten there yet. I actually wrote a piece that I haven't released yet, but it's about how people, you either have to like wake up or just, break from reality, just continue to be broken from reality. And it's like Marjorie Taylor Greene, she reached her limit to where, you can't unsee what you see when all those pieces fall together.
Though I encourage folks not to fall for her performative bullcrap either. She's still
she's got a plan. She definitely has a plan.
Oh yeah, she does.
Well, I mean, like Martha Stewart, she wasn't saying anything about ICE, and now it's all over the news. Like, oh, she finally had to say something because her granddaughter, called her out on it.
I mean, I guess I welcome these statements when they come, but you have to take the entire body of work, right? Chuck, I'll give you the last words on this Georgia election story.
The only thing that it was kind of resonating through my mind is, kind of thinking through what's going on geopolitically. And if Tulsi Gabbard was there, and again, Jennifer, I love your analysis of her facial movements, like oh my God, I'm here. I love that. But what worries me in a certain respect is if they're trying to tie some kind of foreign influence campaign, do they tie that back to Iran, where they're trying to focus some of their energy where we're putting more of our assets in position to possibly do whatever. It does give me some pause in that kind of context.
It's crazy, Chuck, that we're just like living in such crazy times, everything everywhere all at once that you just mentioned in passing the buildup of in the Persian Gulf and potential war with Iran. And we're That's it. That's all we're going to talk about it today. This should be the top story in any normal time, but we have to talk about the complete erosion of the constitutional order. We talked about the 10th Amendment, separation of powers, and the things left to the states. Well, the First Amendment is under attack as well, and freedom of the press. So this from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Journalists Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were among 4 arrested over a protest during a St. Paul church service. Independent journalists Fort and Lemon were arrested by federal agents in connection with their role in documenting an anti-ICE demonstration in a St. Paul church during a service on January 18th. Now, Fort's attorney told the Star-Tribune that she was arrested about 6 a.m. on January 30th at her Twin Cities home and taken to the Whipple Federal Building, site of much of the judicial activity in connection with the federal immigration crackdown in Minnesota. Lemon, a former CNN anchor, was also in City's church during the protest and covering it as a journalist. He was arrested late on the January 29th, that's Thursday, in Los Angeles while covering the Grammys. Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote on X that the arrests of the journalists were done at her direction. Bondi said she also ordered the arrests of politician and Black Lives Matter Minnesota co-founder Traherne Cruz and DFL activist and former state House staffer Jamel Lundy, the intergovernmental affairs manager for the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. Now, also charged with participating in the protest are Minneapolis civil rights activist, a St. Paul school board member, and some other folks. The Trump administration sought to charge 8 people in total over this episode, citing a law that protects people seeking to participate in a service in a house of worship. But a magistrate judge who reviewed the evidence approved charges against some of these folks, but rejected the evidence against the others as insufficient, namely because they were doing journalism. So after his arrest, Don Lemon spoke out, telling Newsweek, telling a press conference, which I'm reporting Newsweek's coverage of, quote, a federal magistrate judge in Minnesota previously denied arrest warrants for Lemon and others, but a federal grand jury later indicted individuals, including Lemon and Georgia Fort, alleging conspiracy to deprive congregants of their rights. Lemon said, quote, I have spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now. There is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable. Now, FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Freedom, says that Section 241, which is the statute under which these folks were charged, it criminalizes conspiring to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the Constitution or laws of the United States. It's unclear whether the government has ever invoked this section to protect First Amendment religious exercise. Supreme Court precedent suggests that when the government moves to protect First Amendment rights under similar civil rights statutes, the prosecution must prove that state actors were involved. If so, the government faces a steep uphill battle proving the Section 241 charge. Now, Judge Schultz, the same guy who issued the scathing rebuke of ICE before in this section, in denying prosecutors' request to indict Lemon, wrote, quote, the government lumps all 8 protesters together and says things that are true of some of them, but not all of them. 2 of the 5 protesters were not protesters at all. Instead, they were a journalist and his producer. There is no evidence that those 2 engaged in any criminal behavior or conspired to do so. Chuck, arresting journalists for doing journalism, very, very concerning, to say the least.
Absolutely. Again, it's a constant assault. I mean, they're literally shredding every basic right that exists at this point. And in the fact that, I mean, Don Lemon has been a professional reporter for longer than most of us remember for the most part. Now he does it bloody well. I think it's kind of curious though that if this had not been shall we say, a certain religious institution of widespread resort, would the reaction have been the same? And I kind of find myself questioning, probably not. The fact that, again, that the arrest even occurred, or even that they're trying to lump everybody together, it makes absolutely zero sense. And again, that's why it is important. And I agree 110%. Independent journalism is absolutely what has to happen. I mean, the big network people, I'm sorry, they're having to obey their corporate masters, for lack of better terminology, and they're not going to report it as cleanly and as clearly as what independent reporters will. So, we need to keep that going. We need to protect these folks. And honestly, I think it's going to fall flat on its face, in the grand scheme of this. I think it is going to backfire huge.
Well, but Jennifer, this thing may backfire, right? And I'm sure Fort and Lemon will probably be unscathed criminally. However, this chills other journalists, right? Especially independent journalists like Don Lemon. Has a long career and many years at CNN under a nice salary. Behind him. Independent journalists may be scared to do their jobs because they can't afford the legal process, right?
Well, I think it's Don Lemon, right? So he can be used as an example. I don't know. I don't think it's just going to go away because Trump is always trying something new, right? His administration is trying to see what they can push. So I think that they'll push this and see where they can take it to. And I'm sure, is it Nicki Minaj is out there having a good old time. She's cheering this whole thing on, their personal thing. So, and the administration is just that bad to do something like that. But I think because it is something that has not really been used to prosecute people, and being somebody of, the status of Don Lemon, that I don't think it's just going to just go away.
No, well, like you said, it may not. He'll be able to weather that storm, at least financially, in terms of paying his attorneys. But independent journalists may just not cover controversial stories like this for fear of their legal exposure and going into bankruptcy trying to defend themselves.
Which is why I think for the Trump administration, it is important for them to try to see where they can take this to because then you have an example, right? If they can do this to somebody of this stature, right, then I'm not even going to go there and try it. So
I think it's going to become a battle cry, though. I'm sorry, Jen. I think it's going to be a battle cry for the folks to stand up even harder. Honestly, when it comes right down to it, I don't think it's going to chill anybody. I think it's going to say, oh, hell no, you're not stopping me from doing this job, because it is a constitutional right, and I'll be damned if it's going anywhere. At least my 2 cents.
Yeah. So a couple more things I wanted to cover before we turn the corner and get to our Indiana stories this week. President Trump did nominate a new gentleman to be the chair of the Federal Reserve. This is from PBS. Trump announced on Friday that he would nominate Kevin Warsh to be the next chair of the Federal Reserve, an independent agency that has been under pressure from the president to lower interest rates for the last year. If confirmed, Warsh would succeed Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who, mind you, Trump himself appointed during his first term and who has now incurred the president's wrath for not heeding his demands. Powell's term expires in May. Warsh served on the Fed Board of Governors from 2006 through 2011, where he had an opportunity to help shape the economy during one of its greatest periods of turmoil, during the Great Recession. So CNBC reports that Warsh emerged from his first term as a Fed critic. He warned that large-scale asset purchases and near-zero benchmark interest rates ran the risk of distorting markets and undermining long-term price stability. While supporting earlier efforts, Warsh voted against the second round of quantitative easing, bond purchases, stuff that gets way over my head. But, the the thing is that if Trump thinks Warsh will be able to just push through these aggressive rate cuts, he might be in for an unpleasant surprise. Multiple voting members on the Federal Open Market Committee have expressed resistance to cutting further until there's more evidence that inflation is definitely moving toward the central bank's 2% inflation goal. We've been running consistently higher than that for some time now. Both Democrats and Republicans have largely praised this move, thinking of Warsh as an independent figure. We'll see what kind of deal he made with Daddy to be nominated as the new Fed chair. But largely, he has seemed to be independent. My first thought is it's pronounced wash. I kid, but Chuck, do you have thoughts on this Warsh fellow?
I'm sorry,
I don't.
I got to recover past that joke. That was a great plug. I love that. Yeah, honestly, again, it's more of the same, putting in sycophants where they don't need to be placed. I mean, the Fed is supposed to be independent. And I think Jerome Powell has definitely set that stage. He set that bar pretty high, and I've got nothing but mad respect for him for standing his ground and doing his work as he should. This guy, no, he's going to do whatever he's told.
Well, let's hope so. It seems like he has been critical of especially low interest rates. I don't know. Jennifer, is this up your alley at all? How do you feel about this?
Not a lot,
I get
except
lost on these things.
Trump is not going to just stick anyone in there. So he's already had hard enough time with this and trying to get rate cuts. So I'm sure he'll just be another lapdog.
We will keep an eye on it. Now, one thing that we've been keeping an eye on for some time is this whole business with the Epstein files. Now, on Friday, we got a huge dump from NBC. The new document dump dwarfed the two earlier Epstein file releases, including more than 3.5 million pages, 2,000 videos, and 180,000 images. According to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who said so in a press conference, also saying that constituted about half of the more than 6 million Epstein-related documents the DOJ collected. Now, so does that mean that half are still outstanding? Because the DOJ has missed a December deadline to turn over all of the unclassified documents, with certain exceptions, required by the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which was signed into law November 19th and gave Attorney General Pam Bondi 30 days to release all of the department's Epstein files. So here we are now, some 60 plus days past that, when we've got about half. The law also required the agency to explain any redactions to Congress, but some of the newly released documents were heavily redacted, including 81 pages of an 82-page document that refers to Epstein's psychological review. One 7-page document was completely redacted and later appeared to have been removed from the DOJ website entirely. So, some of the big takeaways from this thing, according to CNN, Trump's name shows up a ton in the latest batch of files, which includes material ranging from investigative documents to emails to news clips. A few of the mentions stand out. So first, there is this email chain. I think this is the one that most people are focusing on online. This email chain from August 2025, in which an apparent FBI employee displays a list of apparently unsubstantiated tips involving Trump and Epstein. Many of them are quite salacious, very difficult to read if you've read any of them. Also referenced were a Southern District of Florida draft indictment from the 2000s that would have charged Epstein alongside what appeared to be 3 others who are described as having been employed by Epstein. The individuals' names are redacted, but are described as facilitating appointments between Epstein and girls. This tranche of documents also includes references to figures such as Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Trump sycophant and tech mogul Elon Musk, also includes more references to Bill Clinton, and former Trump advisor Steve Bannon is mentioned in these files as well. Jennifer, have you seen any of these accusations? Apparently, these were things called into the FBI tip line, and were in various states of being followed up on. Some could not be followed up on. All of these things are said to be unsubstantiated, but like, man, if there's even a kernel of truth to any of those allegations in that list, that is disgusting.
Well, speaking of disgusting, I have to apologize. I didn't really dive into that because automatically when these came off, what I was just taken back by right off the bat was those pictures of used to be Prince Andrew. There's 3 pictures of him with women. I mean, trying to make it past that is pretty disturbing. And just kind of there was so much that came out yesterday, right? So talk about Bill Gates and Elon Musk came up as well as some people closer to home that I'll let you talk about whenever you're ready with that. So I unfortunately don't have a lot of context with specifically what you're talking about there. So let's give it to Gil.
Well, you know what? Listen, I don't blame you. These, and again, I have to state that these are things that were called into the FBI tip line. Anybody can call anything into the FBI tip line, but man, there is a whole lot of smoke, and even so much as an ember of truth in this, Chuck, should put people in prison at the very least for a long time.
It should definitely invite a greater degree of scrutiny for sure. The disturbing some of the things I've seen, just, of course I couldn't digest all of it because just, you almost want to vomit when you get halfway through even a part of it. But it's just, that anybody involved in it, it doesn't matter what their affiliation is or what their current position is. If they're involved in that and proven to, again, guilty beyond, guilty as charged, then they should be dealt with accordingly, as according to law, and it should apply universally without question.
The one thing is, when I was preparing for today, I was looking at more stuff about the files and putting Epstein files in there. And the really sad thing that comes up is our government websites. The amount of information in our government website, like the files and all of this, is massive. It's just massive. And we're not even going to, hear most of it at all. It's, all redacted. But the thing is we are talking about all these different people, and there's more and more people, and they're all people of money and power. That is how much of a web the systems and the power and the money are tied to this country.
It really goes to show, if you've got enough financial wherewithal, you can get away with anything, including the sickest shit you can imagine.
Yeah, and the redaction, the lack of the fact that they didn't adhere to the proper protocols for redactions. I mean, some of the victims that were named that shouldn't have been named. There was pictures that were not. I mean, this was. I mean, a kindergartner could have done probably better than half these schmucks that were doing this stuff. I swear.
Yeah, and I want to say there was a group of like 20 survivors that said afterwards that they were still very concerned that number one, about the redactions and people's names being exposed, but also, again, where are the other half of these files? What's in these other nearly 3 million documents that we're not getting? So let us move on. Let's turn the corner. We're a little bit behind schedule, but just big news week again this week. Drinking from the fire hose here. But let us have a little sip of Indiana news. We'll start at the crossroads here of Indiana stories and national stories. And there's a couple things I wanted to flag here. So first of all, President Trump signed an executive order on Friday confirming plans for an IndyCar race around the National Mall. So previously, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy posted an AI-generated video. This is last week depicting such a race, and Trump shared the video and expressed support for the idea, wanting it as part of celebrations for the country's 250th birthday. Well, Friday, Trump signed this order confirming plans for the race, calling it the Freedom 250, and he is instructing the city's mayor, Muriel Bowser, a Democrat, to work with his administration on putting the race together. Roger Penske, the IndyCar owner, was there at this signing ceremony. Penske was previously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Trump in 2019. Penske, a very prominent figure in Indiana here with his association with the IndyCar series. Also, in the intersection of Indiana and national news, the FBI, we found out, searched 2 IU biology labs last month. Oh, sorry. No, it was December. It's February now. The FBI searched 2 labs. One of them employed a Chinese researcher who faced smuggling charges for bringing plasmid DNA from E. coli into the country. The laboratories belong to Professors Roger Innes and Xindong Wang, both microbiologists who work with bacteria. Innes also employed postdoctoral fellow Yu Huang Xiang, who the FBI arrested in November. Now, DNA of E. coli plasmids is generally harmless and commonly researched in labs. One biology graduate student knowledgeable of the searches told Indiana Public Media that they often send and receive plasmids from out of the country. Sounds like it's not a big deal, but it's being made a big deal out of as, Trump and his administration ramp up this anti-China rhetoric. Finally, a story about Indiana hospitals nearing a financial cliff as pressures mount in response to Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed last summer. The Indiana Hospital Association calling on local and federal lawmakers to help address the mounting pressure that hospitals across the Hoosier State continue to experience amid Medicaid cuts and other systemic issues. According to an analysis that was completed by Kaufman Hall, a company that specializes in providing healthcare management consulting and insights, Indiana hospitals continue to face obstacles such as reduction in Medicaid reimbursement rates, operating on razor-thin margins, and navigating the growing costs of medical services and products outpacing projected revenues. The Indiana Hospital Association, again, which I should note it's a lobbying organization. That's what they do. They lobby on behalf of the hospital business. They urge lawmakers to to consider the following changes to ease the burden on healthcare providers and hospitals across the state, including modernizing Medicaid reimbursement rates, reducing administrative burdens and insurer-imposed delays and denials, ensuring hospitals can continue providing essential services, particularly in rural areas, and supporting financial stability to prevent hospital closures and surface reductions. I will note that they didn't mention anything about tackling administrative bloat, but that's neither here nor there. Chuck, which of those stories piques your attention this week?
I guess the first one that jumped out at me, the race, where Trump is trying to set an IndyCar race. And I'm just curious in that article of understanding, like, where's this funding coming from? Apparently we can find funding for his UFC fights and for a race car track around the National Mall, yet we can't find money for healthcare and the thousands of other things that need to be.
Right, there you go. Connect the two stories together, like we got money for an auto circuit in the middle of the nation's capital, but we're slashing Medicaid reimbursements rates, which leads to things like rural hospitals closing their OB department, which was referenced in that article. Jennifer, thoughts?
I mean, this is something we've been talking about in Indiana for a while, and this is also one of the subjects that the Rural Summit has really talked about and spent a lot of time this last summer, is the closing of these rural hospitals. And it's not a mistake. It's not like, we're running out of money, or it's really by design, in closing up those hospitals that are rural. They're further out. They've got people further out, spread out, cost more money to deal with them. Also, some of that rural land is really wanted for some of these solar farms that they're wanting to help fund some of these businesses that are getting a lot of these tax breaks. So I think it's all by design. I really think a lot of this also has to do with building local economies for the businesses that are really controlling a lot of what's going on in Indiana.
Well, supporting hospitals would be good for local economies, right? Supporting hospitals,
It would
supporting
be.
schools. I think that I talked about this with Nate Stout earlier this week when he was on a live recording of the Who's Left podcast. We were talking about how, rural hospitals and rural schools are economic engines of their community. And if you do things like hire teachers and hire janitors and hire hospital workers, those folks take that money and they spend it directly back into their local economies. It props up the whole thing. And we're cutting out the bottom of our communities by these cuts.
I want to say yes, you would think that, but it costs the government a lot more money. It's the same thing with schools, right? When they're trying to make the schools consolidate instead of having small schools in different areas, because rural areas are quite spread out. That's why they're rural. And so this is something that's happened over Indiana, even though these schools are the heart of the communities, exactly, what you're talking about. But you consolidate the schools where you want people to live, you consolidate the healthcare that they need to have access to. It costs less money for the government to manage those things when they're closer together too.
Yeah, certainly. But like that, the problem is that we look at these things as businesses and things that cost money instead of investments into our community, as potential profits, right? I want to move on to what's going on in the State House this week, and I should point out that yesterday I had Mad Voters Director of Advocacy Katie Rector on for an hour. We did a review of this past week at the Indiana State House, talked about a lot of the bills that they are tracking. We'll talk about a couple of those here in this segment and a couple of ones that we didn't talk about. That one is available on Progressive Indiana Network for you to watch if you missed it yesterday. So, but moving into the State House here for our purposes, Jennifer, I referenced this one earlier in the show. So, Republican Ed Clear of House District 72 down in your neck of the woods there, he's in New Albany.
Mm-hmm.
He announced he is leaving the Republican Party and will run for mayor of New Albany in next year's municipal elections as an independent.
Yeah.
Clear said, quote, "There are many good Republicans, but the Republican Party has lost its way, and I can no longer be a part of it." Clear broke with the party on several issues, including redistricting, syringe exchange programs, transgender rights, and partisan school board elections. He said that there's been a fault line in the Republican Party, particularly in his community, after the investigation and conviction of former Sheriff Jamie Knoll there. Remember, he is the former Clark County Sheriff and former chair of the 9th District Republican Party who was sentenced to prison in a public corruption and theft case. Claire said he and others in the party who were strongly opposed to Knoll and his influence were in one group, and those who were under the influence of Knoll and did his bidding were in the other group. A lot of those folks are still around, I imagine. And I want to get your thoughts on this one. This is
I didn't know you're going to bring the whole Knoll thing in, so that just complicates everything. But incidentally, I just wrote something for our local paper about Knoll and the sheriff race. But it's this is the thing about Southern Indiana is the Democrats and Republicans, like it's just a crazy bunch of it's just not your typical people. And so the lines are blurred and they cross so much. But Ed Clare is a very beloved state legislator out there. I've yet to meet anybody who says different, except for the Republicans who have sent out this awful letter in response to him leaving them. But he is just one of those people that, he is a friend to everyone and he really fights very hard. It's so unfortunate because he is one of the number one state legislators that fights for people with disabilities. Him and former Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch, they pioneered so much over the last decade for people with disabilities, and all that's, being crawled back. And him and another legislator did submit a bill. I apologize, I cannot remember her name. And it had to do with, people with disabilities, and of course it got kind of sidelined. But it is a big deal. I think he can definitely win in New Albany as independent. But it'll be interesting because I have stepped away from the Democrat Party down in Southern Indiana. I mean, I'm still a Democrat. I'm not going to be running. I'm not going to be running on the Democrat ticket. for state representative. But it is what he talks about. The Knoll case is really reshaping politics in Southern Indiana still. And so I've looked at a lot of the comments and the marks with the announcement of him leaving, and he has a ton of support. And so he is just one of those people that does stand out to people that people are able to look at and see. So I'm anxious to see kind of what happens down here in Southern Indiana, because we're still pushing really hard to get people on the ballot this last week here.
Yeah, I appreciate the independence. We need a lot of decent Republicans with whom we disagree with on many issues to do the right thing at least, and leave a party that has become completely beholden to folks like Donald Trump and like Jamie Knoll. But I don't want to completely dismiss the garbage legislation that a lot of these folks have voted for over their long careers. It doesn't completely. The good stuff doesn't completely offset all that. Speaking of garbage legislation, though, I do want to point out some of the other things that are going through the State House this week. We got links to an Axios Indy bill tracker and an Indy Star bill tracker in the show notes, which you should be subscribing to, again, over at progressiveindiana.net. But I want to focus on a couple of bills in particular, and Chuck teased this one a little bit earlier, I think, or maybe it was you, Jennifer. I don't even remember. What is time? So this a military police bill passed the House, moving on toward the Senate. So following 90 minutes of intense debate, this is from the Capitol Chronicle, a bill empowering Indiana's governor to deploy a military police force of Indiana National Guard members throughout the state advanced Wednesday on a 67-29 vote. It now heads to the Senate. So time to contact your senators if you don't support this bill. Proponents maintain that this measure ensures Hoosier soldiers and airmen are ready for emergencies, and they cited the fractured response to the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. Opponents, of which I consider myself one, fear the provisions could be abused, pointing to President Trump's ongoing lethal deployment of federal immigration officers in Minnesota. The governor would be able to order the force to active duty and deploy them anywhere in the state in the case of war, disaster, or at any other time the governor considers necessary. That's pretty broad. He'd have to provide a reasonable notice to affected law enforcement agencies and coordinate with them, again, as circumstances permit. Very vague language. My understanding, Chuck, is that, he can send his militarized police force anywhere in the state without consulting with local authorities like mayors and county commissioners and, whatever elected Democrats that would get in his way, I suppose.
Basically, yes. And I can say this from my military experience. While the military, when we train in the military for law enforcement, we train for a very specific set of variables, which are not consistent with civilian law enforcement. I went through this post 9/11 where I was on an auxiliary security force for a period of time and working with the Newport News Police out in Virginia. There were certain things we could do, certain things we absolutely could not do. And, this sets a stage that is very dangerous for me. And after watching some of that debate, and Pierce brought up a very eloquent point, the governor can basically do whatever, whenever he wants. And this reasonable notification thing could be an hour, could be 5 weeks, depending on whatever he determines to be reasonable. There's no definition in the legislation for that. So it really sets a dangerous state, I think, for me. And I think it puts our National Guard troops in even more of a precarious position because they're not there to do those kind of things. I mean, they might be civilian law enforcement in their civilian lives, but when you're on active orders, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of leeway built into this thing, a lot of vague language. We're trusting Mike Braun's judgment and discernment here. I don't trust Mike Braun's judgment and discernment. I want to look at another couple bills that are moving their way through the State House. There is a hemp-related bill which passed the Senate and is moving on to the House. This would alter the state's definition of hemp to match the federal definition. Under this bill, residents under 21 will not be able to enter an establishment that mainly sells tobacco products and products containing THC. Again, I think that kind of lines up with where we are at. The age to buy tobacco or THC products anywhere nationally is 21. Now, with the reclassification of marijuana being discussed at the federal level, this bill would also allow the Indiana General Assembly to decide to follow the federal government should they reclassify marijuana. The state's current statute would automatically lower a drug on Indiana's drug schedule if the federal government made the change there. So now that sounds like if the federal government deschedules it, Indiana could still choose to categorize cannabis as a dangerous drug. Looking at other bills and dangerous substances potentially, the state is pursuing primacy over carbon dioxide storage wells. This would require the DNR to seek primary enforcement authority over Class 6 wells. This is one of 6 kinds of wells where the EPA regulates underground injection of substances like oil, gas, and now, in this case, geological sequestration of carbon dioxide. 6 states already hold primary enforcement authority for these Class 6 wells. Kerwin Olson, the executive director of Citizens Action Coalition, said his ratepayer advocacy organization and peers think agencies like the DNR can be too lax. So I guess I want to pause here and get your thoughts on either of those. Jennifer, I know the autism community, of which you are an advocate for, has concerns about these cannabis bills because there are effective use cases for things like CBD in treating autism symptoms. Is that correct?
Yeah, CBD, yes, in products, but also really just medical marijuana in general. I mean, it is used by so many people on the spectrum, adults especially. It's one of the, so I'm here in Puerto Rico and I have my medical license here, and it's one of the first, well, obviously it starts with an A, autism, but one of the first things that you can qualify for in order to get medical marijuana. So I think it's really important that we actually work to legalize it here in Indiana. And I feel like Indiana kind of goes back and forth on it. Over the last several years, there's been some bills that have had some readings but then I think last year, wasn't there a bill that said you couldn't have vehicles that had anything about marijuana or any of the products on it? And now we're looking at the one that you're talking about. So I think that until Indiana finds a way for the powerful people to make money off of it, then it's going to stay not accessible to people.
Now, Chuck, you are, you're in water infrastructure, but I wonder what you know about things like this gas infrastructure and the potential like carbon sequestration. Like I know down here in southern Indiana, we have a lot of karst features, underground caves, and they actually use them for like storing natural gas.
I didn't know that.
Who knew? But like, what do you like? Is this carbon sequestration a potential good thing? I mean, we do need to like reduce the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, but it's very much an unproven technology. I worry about the Indiana DNR, which is a captured organization basically controlled by lobbyists and donors, their ability to regulate this kind of new untested technology.
Well, I have a couple. I'm going to try to hit these as succinctly as I can. One, I mean, yes, I'm in water, and carbon sequestration is kind of a whole different technology set. However, premises are kind of similar. Anything that happens in our underground, whether it be oil whether withdrawal or injection, has to be carefully monitored locally. There's no other way to do it. And now I would say DNR has a better advantage locally because of the monitoring networks they're trying to establish for groundwater. So I think similar things can be done in this space. But what worries me is the new and unproven part of it, because Indiana and new typically have not married up all that too very well. So I think as long as it's done with the proper geological studies, yes, it could be an idea. But I think there are better ways to carbon capture. There are a lot of great technologies out there. We just here in the States have not decided to adapt a lot of that yet.
So there's a couple more bills I just want to breeze through really fast because we've got only about 25 minutes here and a bunch of stuff I still want to cover. A bill that would permit but not require a display of the Ten Commandments in schools moved on. Lawmakers advanced this bill. Now, it was originally written to require schools to display the Ten Commandments in classrooms. Now it has been modified, amended to allow school districts to permit the display of the Ten Commandments in classrooms. Lawmakers stopped short of requiring it as the original bill proposed. Critics of House Bill 1086 said giving Indiana districts permission to display the Ten Commandments rather than a mandate would effectively shift the legal burden from the state to school districts instead. Additionally, another sort of school-related bill, lawmakers amended a bit of legislation to keep protections for diabetic kids in place. The House approved an amendment Tuesday afternoon to retain Hunter's Law, a 2007 law that provides additional protections for school children managing diabetes. This change means enhancements to a federal protection will remain in Indiana. A spokesperson for the Indiana School Board Association confirmed that organization had recommended the elimination because it believes the protections are already provided under federal law. Finally, in bills I want to look at this week, a bit of good news as a piece of terrible legislation did go down with the House narrowly rejecting a bill that would have introduced firing squad as an execution method in the state. This bill failed despite having 48 votes in favor and 47 against. In the 100-member House, a bill must earn at least 51 votes to advance. 19 Republicans joined Democrats in voting against this bill, which would have allowed the Department of Corrections to choose between lethal injection and a firing squad when carrying out death sentences. This vote comes a day after lawmakers removed nitrogen hypoxia as a potential execution option. And I guess just, Chuck, you mentioned it earlier, I think, real pro-life, huh? This is what these guys think about. This is Jim Lucas down in Seymour, House District 69. Chris Bowen's running against him, like her a lot. But, what are we doing? We talk about being a pro-life state. I think we just had a big rally for life on the State House steps with a bunch of Republican politicians there touting how much they respect the sanctity of life. And here are the majority of them in the State House of Representatives debating new and effective ways to kill people. So
I guess the whole pro-life hypocrisy of it. If I could wave a big enough BS flag anytime they cry that, I think I'd wave my arms out. But you're right. I mean, it's when it's convenient, and really when they say they're pro-life, they're anti-abortion. Period. They're not. Again, it has nothing to do with making people's lives better. They have shown that time and time and time again. If they cared about if they were pro-life, they would engage in education, healthcare, food, school food programs. I mean, the list goes on. So again, you can't scream about pro-life only when it's convenient. You got to cradle to grave. I can't say it any better than that.
Jennifer, this Ten Commandments thing, it seems like a poison pill. So, obviously it is a flagrant violation of the First Amendment to mandate that public schools display this religious text in their classroom. But by kicking that down the road to individual school districts or maybe even individual teachers, I think they're opening up these districts and individuals to lawsuits, and these school districts can't afford to defend those lawsuits. Is this just a subtle way of bankrupting local school districts so they can then step in and privatize them? What are they doing?
I don't know if that's it. I do know as far as it's awful for them to put it onto the schools and the school district, right? Because they're just kicking it down the road, the can down the road. They have to deal with that, which is just going to become so much more problematic in schools. I mean, I could just see a mess like there was during COVID with everybody fighting against each other. Now you have school boards that have to, I believe, have to declare, are they Republican or Democrat? It's going to make these even more divisive. So yeah, this is definitely an issue that's not going to go away, and it's not going to make things easier on the schools.
I just want to chime in one thing real quick. If they're going to allow that, then are they going to allow the Torah? Are they going to allow the Quran? Are they going to allow all of it to come in as well? Again, if you're going to open that door, okay, but open it for everything, because you can't have a single state sanctioned religious text being protected. You have to, you either do all or nothing. Frankly, in my opinion, being none of it needs to be in schools, but
yes,
that's a whole different bag of rice we can get into right now.
Yeah, we saw the Republicans at the national level, sawing the legs out from under the First Amendment's protection for journalism, and here we got our local elected Republicans trying to saw the legs out from the protection of freedom of and from religion in our state. Chuck, this next one I actually flagged specifically because you are here today, and we talked about you are in water infrastructure. That is your real life job. Not just commentating on Sunday mornings here with me. So there was a couple stories in the Indy Star that are talking about, the ongoing struggle to get water to this LEAP Innovation District that they're building out in Lebanon, putting all these massive industrial park, data centers, advanced manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, whatever, out in the middle of a cornfield. Hey, it turns out they didn't think about getting water out to this place where there isn't much. So Citizens Energy, Citizens is going to be responsible for getting water out there, and they're going to treat and ship water from Eagle Creek in northwestern Marion County there. So construction is underway to build up this tech park known as LEAP, despite opposition from thousands of Indianapolis residents over the way the state plans to supply the water to the project. At the heart of the controversy is the Eagle Creek Reservoir, from which water will be pulled for the district and eventually returned. Now, residents and environmental activists have expressed concern about potential contaminants entering the water in Lebanon and then being discharged into the reservoir. Citizens plans to ship up to 25 million gallons of water to Lebanon every day, which would be about 2 to 3 million gallons more than they currently pull from Eagle Creek Reservoir. The rest of it will come from the Citizens water system, which includes groundwater sources, Fall Creek, the White River, and 3 other reservoirs. An expansion project at one water treatment plant, the construction of another, 4 new booster stations, and 50-plus miles of transmission mains will move this additional water. And now plans exist for a pipe from Lebanon back to Eagle Creek, where Lebanon utilities intend to discharge the treated wastewater, estimated to be more than 100 million gallons a week.
Back into the Eagle Creek?
Back into the Eagle Creek Reservoir.
Now, people use that water. I used to live there in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So, following up now from another article, said discharging treated wastewater into a place like Eagle Creek isn't uncommon. Wastewater has to go somewhere, and several miles upstream from Eagle Creek, the Trico Regional Sewer Utility and the Zionsville Wastewater Treatment Plant also discharge into streams that feed the reservoir. Now, what is odd in this instance, said retired Department of Environmental Management and USGS hydrologist Martin Risch, is that the discharge site is located in a contained reservoir instead of flowing water. Now, Chuck, I think the term, let me play devil's advocate here a little bit. The term wastewater riles people up because, oh my God, they're putting waste into our drinking water system. Like, where do we think our toilet goes?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to try not to go down too many tangents or into the weeds too far, but first chunk of my water life was in wastewater treatment. So the technology that we use returns the water to the receiving stream at river water or at the receiving stream's quality typically. So that's, the people that are recreating in the waterways. Some of that's coming from farm agricultural runoff, that's coming from wastewater treatment plants, so on and so forth. So the water recycling purpose, what it happens with wastewater treatment, we're basically doing what Mother Nature does, just in a very short amount of time. Now, the caveat to all that, and these articles talk about it, is the nutrient loading rates that go into a fixed water body. So limiting nutrients are phosphorus and nitrogen. And if you introduce too much of either one, you're going to have algal blooms that'll affect human health and quality. It'll affect the grasses in the receiving stream. So there's a lot. Because it is contained, there's not the natural mechanisms that would help this work a little bit more effectively. So I think that's really the concern. Now, getting back to the drinking water side of it, this is where I have a massive malfunction as a water professional. There is technologies we should be using for these kind of projects, and it's called water reuse programs. And this basically takes wastewater that has been treated, again, would be going to receiving streams, put it through one more cycle of treatment, and then use that for the process water for these type of projects. It can be done at a revenue stream for the wastewater industry. It's a win-win all the way around. And plus, it helps limit any metals from getting back to the receiving streams, possibly poisoning off other things along the way, because let's face it, the data center is not the only thing that's going to be there. There's going to be other industrial components. You could have light industrial, you could have other manufacturing. Pharmaceuticals are notoriously problematic for wastewater treatment because, and this is why I tell people, sorry, got to make a safety plug here. Folks, do not flush your drugs down the toilet. Ever, never do it. Bad idea. Take it for proper disposal because wastewater treatment does not remove pharmaceuticals from the water streams. So whatever goes down your john is going to end up in your water stream 60 to 90 days down the road. So sorry, I hope I...
Thank you for explaining these things because it really it's a lot, and it sounds like there are things that we could be doing here that they're not doing to make this safer.
I believe so because again, they've opened the door for water reuse to kind of start to be talked about as a actual idea, but they're not actually putting the investments into it yet. So this is a technology that's being used across the United States and in Europe, all over the place. We just are not doing it yet. In Indiana, we are woefully behind the eight ball in water management strategies. Universally, we are behind the eight ball. We should be much further down the road.
And that sort of goes back to what we're talking about with the Department of Environmental Management here in our state being largely, captured by polluter interests and appointed by governors who are propped up by big donations from, extraction and pollution, companies that put things into our environment that we would rather not have. So Jennifer, I'm going to come to you first next on this one here. So let's talk about our good friend Mayor Joe Hogsett in Indianapolis again here. So a joint investigation by Mirror Indy and the Indy Star. This is part 2, just came out this week. Again, showing that at least 4 people with close ties to Hogsett, including 2 former city employees, a top donor, and a former council Democrat, worked on contracts related to Old City Hall, yet a decade later, the building on Alabama Street remains empty. The contracts, worth up to $1.5 million in total since 2017, were awarded without a competitive bidding process, exactly the kind of practice Hogsett criticized on the campaign trail. His first policy announcement while running for mayor in 2015 was an ethics reform package that included a promise to reduce no-bid contracts. Well, this joint investigation has found that, after a decade in power, Hogsett's administration continues to regularly award contracts without a competitive process. In addition to those Old City Hall contracts worth $1.5 million, the city and public agencies over which Hogsett has influence have awarded $5 million in other no-bid legal contracts benefiting 4 of the mayor's top former advisors since 2020. All of them left their city positions for jobs with big downtown law firms, then either signed or worked on multiple contracts with the city or other public agencies, sometimes within weeks or months of leaving. Now, Hogsett spokesperson defended the use of these contracts in a response to questions from reporters, saying, quote, lawyers are evaluated through a qualitative rather than a quantitative lens. Unlike searching for the contractor who can pour a quality curb ramp at the lowest possible cost, legal service providers are selected based on a skill, knowledge, and particular area of the law, experience, availability based on deadlines, and focus of practice, end quote. This one pissed off a lot of blue-collar working folks, suggesting that, yeah, somehow, the lawyers are different, and contractors, are fungible in some sort of way. Now, other municipalities, it turns out, have found it not only feasible but prudent to award legal contracts through a competitive process. The article details how a city of similar size like Minneapolis does this. Now, 3 of the former staffers signed or awarded contracts as city employees to the 4 firms they later went to work for. 2 returned to law firms where they had worked prior to joining the Hogsett administration. Real revolving door stuff here. Hogsett says his defense of this is that, quote, the cranes seen in the sky all across downtown Indianapolis and the continued accolades from entities such as LinkedIn and CNBC speak to the impact of these investments in the overall growth and success of our city. I am incredibly proud of what this administration has been able to achieve for downtown Indianapolis and of the ripple effects that success is having on all of our neighborhoods. I don't know if Mr. Hogsett has been into the neighborhoods to see what folks think of him there. So I don't know, Jennifer, it's okay because cranes? Because we're building things? That makes corruption fine?
He's just deflecting. I mean, I guess my question is, if they are talking about these lawyers and how they've chosen these lawyers, where is the measure of what they use that against? So, when you do take bids, there's a formal process. We're talking about the money, right? So, but if you're talking about the qualitativeness of the lawyer, that's the question I'd be asking is, where is that document or whatever it is that you measure that against? But the thing is, this is his administration has been hot for a while. Like, people are talking about the things that he's doing. This is no surprise with him. It's actually been a lot of the progressive Democrats in Indianapolis that have really inspired me because of him. And if you've ever met him, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Joe Hogsett is one of the targets of my ire. And look, I've got my problems with the Indiana Democratic leadership. And in many ways, it goes to their cozy relationship with folks like Hogsett. This guy here is the probably most prominent elected Democrat in the state. Anybody who gets Central Indiana TV, news, radio, when they hear Indiana Democrat, they think Joe Hogsett. He's ruining the brand. He makes all of us look bad. Chuck, you're, a Democratic Party chair. How do you deal with folks that point out, like, well, look, that's what a Democrat is?
Well, the simple answer I could give to that is that may have been permissible at one point in time, but is not what we as a party stand for now. And this gets into a much longer answer than I have time to give. But short answer, that may have been where we were, but it's not where we're going to be, and it's not where we need to be as a whole party community working forward for the future for everyone. The one thing to speak back to Jennifer's thought on what is that checklist, or what are they using to judge these folks on? That is a very fair point. In the bidding process, you can say lowest responsive and responsible, okay, but that's if you actually follow the bidding process at all. And some of these folks are not doing that. Diego, our Secretary of State, I even hate to say, I don't even say his name. But anyway, long story short, prime example. But the no bid thing that's not a strong strategy for transparency in government. It's just not.
No. Well, like you said, pointing out Diego Morales, that's the kind of stuff you expect from Republicans, but with Democrats like Joe Hogsett, who needs Republicans? And you know what? I think that speaks to our last story here today, which is that, young voters in Indiana are disillusioned with the process, probably because that is the kind of choices they are offered. This from Recenter Indiana. They conducted a focus group with young adults in a survey of 307 Hoosier young adults ages 18 to 34 in Marion, Hamilton, and Boone counties who were registered to vote but did not participate in the 2024 election. Now, they found that the reason young voters are not going to the polls is because they feel like the government isn't listening to them. They feel that their vote doesn't matter. That is the top reason young adults give for not voting. Disinterest was among the least cited reasons. They're interested. People want to participate. They want to have a reason to come to the polls. But, if you're given two evils, why do you come out? So, while young adults share common frustrations, the specific barrier to voting did differ by race, gender, and party. Men, white voters, and independents are less likely to vote because they don't like either candidate. Women and black voters because of personal obligations, meaning you don't have time to get to the polls because you actually have to, take care of people. Democrats, because they think their vote doesn't matter. Republicans, because they forgot or missed the deadline. Focus group participants viewed Election Day as the chance to vote. Very few mentioned early voting or other options. Most were uninterested in voting by mail, and if they were working or away on Election Day, they simply did not vote. Respondents were most motivated by candidates who feel genuine, speak to issues they care about, and reduce the toxicity of politics, all of which I think we can point back at our last story and Joe Hogsett as being the kind of thing that voters are turned off by. Jennifer, thoughts?
I agree. I mean, we've just got to find a way to get, I don't know. I think what we're doing, I think things like your network that are showing people there are other ways of thinking, kind of going back to what I think a lot of us thought Democrats were, and just like the Republican Party, people have lost their way. But we're also in a completely different functioning society. I mean, we spent the first part of this episode talking about that. So, it's going to be people like us that are going to have to work to try to find ways to bring in some of these voters, because if they're interested, they just need to have a bridge to help engage them. And that's something that we all locally, our local party chapters, can invest time in that. I think the first time I met you, Scott, was in 24 in the summer, and I'd given a speech, and I had spoken about the fact that our party does not do enough to try to draw in young families, parents, and people with young children. And that's where it starts. It starts at home. A lot of these Republicans, their children, they're ingrained from very early on the ideology of the Republican Party. So,
yeah. Now, Chuck, I think it was really concerning that these voters kind of only think of as Election Day as the time when they can vote, and I think that is a problem of outreach. Obviously, our state, our Secretary of State, Diego Morales, doesn't want to advertise that there is early voting. They don't want people to participate in the democratic process. They are making it harder to do early voting. They're reducing the early voting hours and the number of days that it can be done. So I really think it's a failure of outreach. It's a failure to tell people that there are options,
Yeah, and I think that it involves being in spaces as much as possible. I mean, the network that you're generating here, messaging is huge, and if you're not talking with people, and that's one of the big things we have to be very cautious of as we go forward, is we have to talk with people and resonate with them, not talking at them. So with young folks, like I can use my daughter for example. I took her to see then Senator Obama, soon to be President Obama, when we were still in Virginia. She was 4 years old. So she has grown up in understanding the democratic process, because I wanted her to understand that, think for yourself, figure out who's worth voting for, then vote for them. Now, the other side of that is we've got to have the right choices in the moment. We've got to contest every single race, and we've got to get that word out across the spectrum. So if we're running good people and we're getting that word out, young people will engage because I will tell you there's there's a protest that's forming with a lot of our schools here this upcoming week. Young people are engaged. We just got to give them that voice that they want moving forward. And I think at least I can say this for Hancock County, we've definitely got a lot of great folks that are doing it.
You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. Well, that brings us to our conclusion today. I'd like to thank you guys for both tooting our horn here at the very end of the process. Before I take us home with the final pitch, though, Chuck, why don't you tell the folks where they can find you?
So you can reach me through Indiana or Hancock, Indiana Democrats through our website, and you'll see me around on Facebook quite a bit if you kind of research through that. And I'll hope to be adding a larger voice to certain things as we go forward in the selection cycle. So, thanks.
Jennifer, where can folks find you? You've been writing like every day lately. Where can folks
I know.
find you?
I probably write 5 articles like that a day. I just don't put them out. So I usually use Facebook a lot. You can always find me on Facebook, Jennifer David or Jennifer David for Hoosiers. That's my old campaign site. And then I've been doing a lot on Substack now. So Jennifer David, BCBA, that stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. So I've been spending a lot of my time trying to analyze a lot of what's going on in our state and our country from a behavioral perspective.
It's a really interesting perspective and one that you don't always get. So I appreciate having your voice out there, Jennifer, and I'm glad that we here at Progressive Indiana Network can help amplify it a little bit.
I will tell you, it's just a great combination of autism and trauma. So it gives me the ability to, and 25 years of working within the Medicaid system in Indiana. So it's very much a systems perspective.
Well, very good. Again, proud to help amplify that, and just love seeing it. So again, folks, please help us do things like amplify voices like Jennifer's with a subscription over at progressiveindiana.net. If you can't do that, I get it. It's fine. We do need your help, but a free subscription helps too. Also, what helps is a follow, a like, a share on social media at Progressive Indiana Network, at PIN Indiana on Blue Sky or Facebook. On Blue Sky or TikTok. You can find me personally at HoosLeft on most of your social media sites. But for now, on behalf of my guests, Chuck Gill and Jennifer David today, this is Scott Aaron Rogers signing off.
Bye.
Love each other, Indiana.